What happened on flight AI 676? Should a pilot do yoga while flying an aircraft? Date: the 22nd of July 2017. Time: around 8 a.m. Place: Kolkata International Airport. Air India flight AI 676 from Kolkata to Bombay was going through the routine pre-flight checks, getting ready for departure. This was a new Airbus A320 aircraft, considered one of the most fuel-efficient aircrafts. To give you an idea of the size of the airline industry, in the year 2019, 4.54 billion passengers traveled on 38.3 million commercial passenger flights. This works out to approximately 12.4 million passengers and 105,000 passenger airliner flights every day. These numbers do not include smaller aircrafts, private aircrafts, cargo aircrafts, and flights by the armed forces of all the countries in the world. Nevertheless, flying remains the safest way to travel, with the year 2019 having only 0.18 accidents per million departures, or 5.5 million flights per accident. Flying is extremely safe, because safety is a top priority for the industry. Improved technology and a strict compliance of standard operating procedures and safety management systems ensure an excellent safety record. As the numbers show, the incidence of passenger airliner accidents is indeed rare. But the visual impact of the media coverage of airline accidents is very graphic and affects the safety perceptions of the passenger community. And, according to two aviation industry reports, human error continues to be the leading cause, accounting for more than 80% of all commercial airline accidents. Which brings us back to the flight AI 676. The takeoff was smooth. The flying time between Kolkata and Bombay is 2 hours and 30 minutes. There were 105 lives on board, including the 99 passengers, 2 pilots, and 4 cabin crew. But after takeoff, the pilots forgot to retract the landing gear. Landing gear is not essential for flying. However, it is essential for both the takeoff and for landing the aircraft safely. Landing gear supports the aircraft during ground operations, taxiing, and parking. Landing gear enable the aircraft to reach the high speeds for takeoff and also absorb the large impact loads of aircrafts weighing up to 700 metric tons coming in for landing at speeds of up to 200 km per hour, flight after flight, day after every day. The heavy load of an aircraft coming in at such high speeds for landing can collapse on the ground. However, the strong structure of the landing gear and the shock absorbers soak in the impact load, and the brakes further slow down the landing aircraft, allowing it to land gracefully. Landing gear is a complex system consisting of structural members of steel and titanium, hydraulics, energy absorption components, brakes, wheels, and tires. Landing gears therefore must be relatively heavy. They account for up to 5% of the total laden weight of an aircraft and can weigh up to 30 metric tons in bigger aircrafts. But the big and heavy structure of the landing gear is a dead weight while the aircraft is in the air, as it creates a massive drag. Drag is an aerodynamic force that opposes the aircraft's motion through the air. Increased drag limits both operating altitude and operating speed and increases fuel consumption. As per one technical study by Airbus, if an aircraft is flying with the landing gear extended, the fuel consumption goes up 3 times. Thus, after takeoff, the landing gear is retracted and stored inside the aircraft. This single act of omission, of not retracting the landing gear, set off in motion few consequences that could endanger the lives of everyone on board. A typical commercial passenger jet flies at the altitude of about 36,000 feet and at the speed of about 400 to 500 knots or around 740 to 925 kilometers per hour. Since the air is thinner at higher altitudes, there is less resistance and the aircraft can travel faster. Pilots use checklists during every stage of a flight. A checklist is a list of tasks that should be performed by the pilots. The checklists are read aloud in a challenge and response format. One pilot reads the item and the other pilot calls out in response, confirming the verification or the action. Typically, the checklist is left in front of the pilots so that it would not be forgotten. As per the checklist, the landing gear retraction is the first business to be attended to after takeoff. As the two pilots forgot to retract the landing gear after takeoff, the aircraft continued flying with the landing gear extended, like this. Because the landing gear was not retracted, the aircraft had a very sluggish climb and could not climb higher, and it settled at the altitude of 24,000 feet. The aircraft was also flying at a lower speed of 240 knots against the operating speed of 500 knots. The aircraft continued flying like this towards its destination at a lower altitude and at a lower speed. In this case, the pilots not following the checklist procedure was just the beginning of their negligence. The extremely poor situational awareness of both the pilots continued well into the flight. They were so distracted that for the next 90 minutes of the flight, the two pilots ignored the excessive noise and vibrations that would be caused by the extended landing gear. The pilots also failed to notice that the aircraft was flying at the lower altitude of 24,000 feet and at the lower speed of 240 knots. This was a case of the pilots failing, both individually and jointly, in performing their duties. There are two big screens of primary flight displays, one each for both the pilots. The information of low speed and low altitude was therefore available to both the pilots, staring right in their face, but both the pilots failed to register it. Both the pilots also remained totally unaware of the 3 landing gear lights and the down position of the landing gear handle. Ironically, the drag caused by the landing gear was not letting the aircraft climb above 24,000 feet, where it had to face more drag due to the denser air. A passenger flight of this duration normally carries additional fuel for at least 1 hour's worth of flying to enable the aircraft, in case of an unforeseen event, to fly to an alternate airport and land there. The events that unfolded on Flight AI-676 show that the pilots stayed totally unaware of the situation, almost reaching a zombie state and giving new dimensions to the meaning of the term autopilot. As they were not even monitoring the instruments, they did not or could not take any corrective actions. As you have already seen, the pilots of this flight were totally distracted. This video will get even more interesting. The universal problem of mind wandering is now going to be examined through the various perspectives of what happens in the brain when the mind is wandering, the evolutionary aspects of mind wandering, and research by the universities of Harvard, Princeton, and Berkeley. Mind wandering in the ancient Indian texts. Our current obsession with social media and its damaging impact on our work. The concept of Kundalini and how we utilize our energies. and the need to master conscious competence when distractions are plentiful. Oh, I forgot. It also teaches you how not to fly an aircraft. Apex Pyramid brings to you well-researched, exhaustive, and thought-provoking knowledge from these disparate domains and uniquely links them to lead you to deep and profound insights to help you achieve growth, development, and expansion of all the aspects of your personal and professional life. To know what happened to Flight AI 676 and its connection with yoga, watch this video till the end. Would you like to continue to receive such well-researched and inspirational videos? Please subscribe, share, and leave your comments. Also press the bell icon so that we can constantly update you about our latest videos. Since the airline has not disclosed the recordings of the black box, it is anybody's guess what happened in the cockpit. We do not know what gossip kept the pilots so busy and distracted. To answer that, let us examine what is awareness, attention, and focus. Why are we so distracted and always daydreaming? These are questions that neuroscientists and psychologists routinely face and philosophers are trying to answer for millennia. Animals are always aware and alert. But, unlike animals, we spend a lot of time thinking about what is not going on around us, contemplating events that happened in the past, might happen in the future, or will never happen at all. This common phenomenon of mind wandering occupies up to 47% of our daily mental activity, as found by a Harvard research in 2010. Even in 1890, the conflict between our goals and the lure of distractions was occupying the mind of William James, the American philosopher, when he wrote in his book,
The faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention, over and over again, is the very root of judgment, character, and will.
A recent scientific study by Princeton University and University of California, Berkeley, has concluded that our brain refocuses our attention 4 times every second. The brain's limited capacity cannot simultaneously process all the information in our complex environment. Selective attention is the mechanism that determines which aspects of the environment should receive preferential processing by sifting the information in levels of importance, namely, what information demands our immediate attention and needs action, what can wait till later, and what can be entirely ignored and dismissed. Our ancestors, the prehistorical men, sustained themselves by hunting small animals and foraging in a hostile environment. There were always possibilities of sudden life-threatening attacks. When you are out foraging in a hostile environment, if you get overly focused on a task, you might miss a predator lurking around and end up being its meal. Our brain is therefore designed to be continually alert for new opportunities and threats. Continuously focusing our attention on something, then disengaging and shifting that attention to another aspect of the environment was therefore adaptive and to our advantage during prehistoric times. It enhanced our ability to survive and to reproduce. But in a modern work environment, there are no predators and the distractions are not critical to our survival. Instead, the distractions keep us from being focused on what we need to do, and so, something that helped us through evolution is hurting us in the modern times. Almost 3,000 years back, Indian ancient texts clearly defined this problem. I bring to you 4 verses from Bhagvad Gita, where Sri Krishna and Arjuna are discussing the problem of mind wandering.
Yato yato nischarati.
For whatever causes and from wherever the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that restrain it and bring it back to be under the control of the self alone. Stop your mind from wandering.
Shanai शनैः उपनमेत्
Slowly and gradually, through reason, patience, and repeated effort, withdraw the mind and establish it in the self, not thinking of anything else.
न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तये चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि
The mind verily is restless, turbulent, powerful, and unyielding, O Krishna. It seems to me, to control it is as hard as to control the wind.
श्रीभगवानुवाच असंशयं महा
Sri Krishna said, undoubtedly, O mighty arm, the mind is restless and difficult to control. But by practice and detachment, it is restrained. Experiments have revealed a great deal about the cognitive and neural basis of mind wandering, but little about its consequences in everyday life. Understanding the philosophical aspects of this problem is therefore crucial. You must control your attention to control your life. Your attention determines the experiences you have, and the experiences you have determine the life you live. You choose where you direct your attention at any given moment, based on an understanding of your goals, rather than allowing distractions to derail you. On mastering a skill, the controls of the skilled activity shift to below the level of consciousness. This unconscious competence is responsible for people switching to autopilot when faced with routine tasks. Ironically, in today's world, our professional growth and success is entirely dependent on doing routine tasks, not mechanically, but with total awareness and attention. A surgeon, doing an operation mechanically, treating it as a routine task, can leave the surgical tools behind in the body of the patient. In this age of distractions, we therefore must move from unconscious competence to conscious competence. Yet, our current economy is constantly providing such incentive away from focus and towards distractions, as we live in an age of constant distractions. The technology has created and encouraged a culture of distraction, with internet and smartphones always providing constant communication and delivering a stream of irrelevant information, taking our focus away from productive work and giving rise to the oxymoronic concept of being physically present but mentally absent on the job. Yet another profound knowledge from ancient Indian texts is Kundalini. The underlying principle of Kundalini is, your energies go wherever your attention goes, and action happens only wherever our energies go. In the case of this flight, no action was happening in the cockpit, because the attention of the pilots, and consequently their energies, were clearly engaged somewhere else. The religious and symbolic interpretations of Kundalini talk of a snake and chakras of different colors. However, scholars and philosophers explain that Kundalini is about being constantly aware of the levels of the body and the mind at which your energies are being dominantly processed. Kundalini meditation is the science of the ascent of consciousness. Through this meditation, you can redirect your energies to higher levels of your body and mind for better and productive utilization of your energies. Once you start doing this on a regular basis, miraculous change start manifesting in your life, taking you to the highest level of achievement in both the personal and professional aspects of life. But that is a subject I would fully cover in another video. Our brains are constantly alternating between two different states of attention and distraction. The frontal cortex, which is engaged in cognitively demanding tasks, helps us maintain focus. Parietal cortex integrates information from the world around us, and therefore responds to distraction. There is a constant struggle going on between these two areas of the brain. If the activity of the parietal cortex dominates, we get distracted, and if the activity of the frontal cortex is stronger, we stay focused. We saw how, in this present case, for both the pilots, their bodies and minds were not united. Their bodies were in the aircraft, but their minds were clearly somewhere else. But leave alone excellence, even competence requires that both your body and mind are united and in one place. When attention is directed through intention to an absorbing thought or an engaging action, the tendency of the mind to wander is checked. The ancient Indian texts teach us how to do that and also offer a perfect solution to this problem of mind wandering: yoga. These days, most people mistakenly associate yoga with body postures. People think of yoga as a physical exercise that stretches the body, increases physical flexibility, and helps lose weight and get into better physical shape. The principles of yoga were codified thousands of years ago by the Indian sage Patanjali in the ancient text of Yoga Sutra. This text portrays the internal workings of the mind and describes yoga as Ashtanga Yoga, which means having 8 limbs. Asanas or physical postures is just one of these 8 limbs. Just getting into perfect physical shape of the body is of no use. The body and the mind are not two separate things. The body is a reflection of the mind. Because if the mind is polluted or filled with garbage, it reflects in every aspect of our life. Yoga is therefore much more than body postures. Yoga is much more inclusive and comprehensive. Yoga is a package of principles, practices, and processes dedicated to creating a union between body, mind, and the spirit. The focused and meditative states achieved by the union between body, mind, and the spirit can then be used by the practitioners to direct their energies to achieve their goals. An excellent performance in any field is ultimately about the action happening from a highly aware, meditative state. Once this state is achieved, both action and awareness are merged and distractions are totally excluded from consciousness. That excellence in any sphere of activity requires the union of mind and body is easily understood. You might wonder what role the spirit plays in this equation. It is easy to achieve the union of body and mind, even when, or especially when you are doing something that is immediately gratifying, though totally unproductive, like watching a movie or playing games on the internet. Spirit is an important component of this equation, as value judgments play an invaluable role in directing your unified energies towards your growth and self-actualization. The principles of yama and niyama in Ashtanga Yoga provide these value judgments through ethical and moral guidelines, leading you in the right direction. Let us now get back to the distracted pilots of the flight AI-676. The aircraft was burning more fuel, and halfway to their destination of Bombay, the aircraft was running dangerously low on fuel and had to be diverted to Nagpur. With such poor situational awareness, it is indeed a miracle that the pilots timely realized that the plane was running low on fuel. Only while lowering the landing gear for preparing to land at Nagpur, the pilots realized that the landing gear had been down for all of the 90 minutes since taking off from Kolkata.
200, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Our story has a happy ending. The aircraft landed safely at Nagpur, and after refueling, the flight continued and completed its journey to Bombay. The 103 passengers continued to be totally oblivious of the fact that they had narrowly escaped a major disaster. The 2 pilots were suspended by the airlines. Which brings me to the question I have asked in the beginning of this video. Should a pilot do yoga while flying an aircraft? Yes, because practicing the principles of yoga leads to excellence.